Well, I'm a student here,
Oh, okay, so you live
but
there.
I'm from Manchester.
So where'd you go to high school?
Mayo.
You did? Yeah, my daughter went to JM and then my son went to Century.
Okay.
So when'd you graduate?
2011. So I'm a senior this year.
So you're a senior, okay. What's your major?
I actually came here in nursing.
Oh, in
And I
nursing.
got into the program and I did a semester, and then I went abroad and I realized that I kind of needed to do something else. So I'm a philosophy major now.
You are, okay.
I wish there was like
The plan is,
I didn't ask you.
I'm very interested in your guys' program.
Are you?
Yeah, the new master.
Uh-huh. Very good.
Not this.
That's why you were shaking your head when I was talking
Yeah,
about it.
not this coming like fall, but the year after.
Excellent. That would be great. That would be great. Yeah, it is, it's just a blossoming program and the courses are, it's blended. And so it's online, but then we have 2 intensive weekends
Right.
that people just go home and it's just emotionally and physically, I mean, sitting that long, but emotionally draining. There's just a lot of self-awareness in the first year. And it's a good
Don't let
program.
Jane
Have
in.
you talked to somebody about the program?
Don't let her in.
No. I've just been looking at it last couple of days.
You have?
Talked to Jane about it,
Yeah.
2 days ago.
No! No!
And now the health coaching, yeah, it really, health coaching is the missing profession, and I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Okay, so once you're back at your seats,
Pioneer.
let's talk a little bit about what we just observed. So I asked you to think about what observations you make about the conversation between Deb and Luke, and then also what questions might you have for them about what that process felt like for them or looked like for them.
Can we ask Luke how that was for him?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, let's start there. Are you cool with that,
Yeah,
Luke?
that's good.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't know what I was getting into at all when I volunteered, so I was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm the one that's doing this. At first it was kind of weird having like everybody around, and then eventually it got to the point where I just kind of like zoned out that there was like an audience, so that was good. Because at first it was like everybody's watching me. It's kind of strange. But the process, I don't know. I guess what ended up happening was I just answered all of my own questions, which was kind of weird. Like I was the one in charge of it, which is what I knew would happen. But it was just like I didn't know I had the answers to my own questions, so that was kind of cool. And if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to ask too.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Was there at some point where it felt like you wanted an answer instead of having to find the answer yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what do you want from this, or what's the next step? And I was like, I don't know. So you kind of like freeze for a little bit, then you think about it for a little bit, and something will come to mind. But it's like, what if I don't have the answer? It's kind of a fear. Then it'd be nice to be given an answer.
Did you notice how big his issue was? I mean, it was really big, and I'm like, we've got 15 minutes here. So where are we gonna go? And I know I was thinking that. And so that's why it was important for me to understand where he wanted to be at the end of the session. And I mean, time and energy. Whew, those are big, big, big issues. And so it's kind of like a funnel. Oftentimes people come with so many issues, and the coach just kind of helps them narrow it down to what is the issue at hand? What is the big issue at hand? And oftentimes, it has nothing to do with what they came with originally to focus on, oftentimes.
Can you talk a bit about the process of helping them narrow it down?
Yeah, that it's so organic. The reflecting. oftentimes, and I don't know if Luke wants to speak to this, but oftentimes hearing your own words reflected back to you is like, did I say that? Did I really say that? Because we've got so many thoughts in our head, and then we talk. So we don't even hear ourselves think and speak sometimes. So having somebody reflect, summarize what you say and reflect what you say is really, it helps you process. It helps that process of identifying what really the issue is and what really is most important. Did anybody think, oh, why doesn't she go down that route? Or why don't they talk about that? Did anybody think that?
I kind of had scenarios of what I would respond to him as if I were you.
Uh-huh.
And then you would say something different, and I would be like, oh yeah, I guess that is a better phrase for this certain situation.
But, excellent point.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to coaching. There's absolutely no right or wrong way to coaching. And what as a coach, I really wanted to ask Luke the powerful questions to get him really deep. But what I think is a powerful question may not be a powerful question to Luke. I may ask some lame question that I think is lame that gets him really to have some insight. So it's a struggle to know what's right and what's wrong. And it's interesting when you sit at the audience and say, oh, I would have gone down that avenue. And oftentimes in a coaching session, there's a fork in the road. And we kind of hit a fork in the road is, okay, we're going to talk about time or energy. And then at the end, it just seems, you know what, it doesn't seem like time or energy is really getting us anywhere. And it's maybe too big of a problem. And it's like, it seemed like the self-care and the step, what can Luke do right now rather than out here? What can he do right now to help deal with the time and energy issue? So that's the thing about coaching is there's no right or wrong way. So thank you for sharing that. That's really important.
Just some observations too. Like you had to modify what you were gonna ask as it went by. But she asked questions based off of what Luke was saying. And that goes along with what we were saying earlier, how it's not prescriptive and how they spent like, what, 20 minutes talking about what Luke wanted to talk about. And then also one other thing on Mitch, when you were talking about what you just mentioned,
Yep.
and the whole asking questions is, I think there's a moment like halfway through when Luke started talking about the skiing and the ski team and how one meet, he felt like he let his team down. And I was thinking in my head, oh boy, here we go, we're gonna get off track here. And right at that very moment, Deb brought it back, and she brought it back to the overcommitment and stuff, and so I thought that was good. You brought it back to, okay, we gotta focus on here, and you use that example as really key to where you're going next.
You know, that's one, I learned this from a master coach, is to ask, what would you like to focus on? Because if you ask, what would you like to talk about? Oh my goodness, you can spend the whole 15, 30, or 60 minutes talking. And because the client has somebody who's going to actually listen to them for that period of time. So what would you like to talk about today is almost too broad. And this master coach has tried everything, and she came up with, what would you like to focus on today? And as you pointed out, is that, so when the conversation kind of gets off track, I know what Luke wants to focus on, even though that may change, but I still have an anchor. I still have an anchor.
Any other observations or questions for either of them about that process? Can someone talk about the ways that it kind of is bringing to life what we've been sort of learning about here? If you think it did bring those things to life? Yeah, Cody.
Well, I just kind of observed just through the session that it was like the importance of asking questions is like a huge part of the entirety of like what we're kind of learning in this class now, especially about others. Like we've been listening to ourselves, but even when we were trying to figure out more about ourselves, we were asking ourselves questions. And it's not like we were looking for direct answers or the like actual answer to it. It was like trying to figure out how to ask the right question. I think this kind of brought that to life, is like the process of asking the right question to either get people to, in the direction they need to be going, or to better understand what they're trying to figure out. And I think that's like a really kind of important thing. So a lot of times we want to make statements about things, and seeing how important it is to ask questions instead of making statements is.
And how freeing it is in some
Yeah.
ways, right? That Deb just gets to sort of ask questions and help Luke get where he wants to go and not have the answers.
And making sure they're open-ended questions and not yes and no questions. And that's sometimes really, really hard because yes and no doesn't allow them to go deeper. So asking the open-ended question is important. And the thing is, as a coach, you always want to, like I said, you always want to ask the right question, and you don't know what the right question is. So if you make sure that they're open-ended. And as you noted, the reflecting on, and I notice that with our students, they get in their head so much that they're 2 steps ahead of the client, and so they're not listening to what the client's saying. And so they're not reflecting back on the words of the client. They're working too hard. And one of my instructors in a health coaching program said, if at the end of the day, when you've coached all day or half a day, if you are exhausted, you work too hard. You're thinking too hard, you're working too hard. The client is the one that needs to do the work. Like Jane said, I get to sit back and ask the questions, but it's still, I need to be really focused and present in the moment and listen to what they say and reflect back their words.
Luke, did it feel like it was like it took a long time, or that it went quickly? Any thoughts about the speed of it, or?
It seemed longer than whatever it was, 15, 20 minutes, but I don't know. I was kind of just in the moment, so it was just going.
Just for the class, did you guys feel like you got to see the benefit or the use of reflecting back? Any comments on that?
Emily has one. Right?
Yeah, well, I can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, even like your very first, like in the very first thing that you said when he said he felt overcommitted and something, and you literally just restated that back. Like that was the very first comment you said, and I was actually surprised with how you would reflect what he was saying, but also it wasn't just it was using his words, but also kind of like more, you kind of like took them, internalized them, and kind of like broke it down to like really like thinking like what is he trying to get at, and then like reset that back to him, which was it was just cool the way that it wasn't just like you just said this, like it wasn't like exactly like a mirror, it was a little bit different, just the way that you could internalize them, I think was cool.
And I think next week you talk about motivational interviewing, right? And you're going to learn about that amplified.
From the reading about it over
Yeah,
the weekend.
good. Yeah, it's a good point.
I was just going to say that how you kind of how he had to answer, you know, how he could take action and how he could help to fix this problem in his life. I thought that was cool because you know pushed him to answer himself, then he knew that it was something realistic that he could do, and something, you know, that really made sense because it's coming from him rather than he's taking advice from someone else. Someone's telling him that this is what he needs to do. But because he answered himself, it's like, well, I answered that. No, it's obviously, if that's how I answered, it's obviously something that I can do. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
It's an excellent observation. The answer comes from within.
I thought that the reflecting really showed like empathy and how you were really listening to him and understanding fully. So it just really was easy to have somebody to talk to. I felt like it would benefit his situation.
That's a good point, because sometimes, it needs to be empathy and not sympathy.
Let's go ahead and invite Andrew up if we're ready to shift gears.
Yeah. Thank you, those were great comments, really, you were very aware. Is it Andrew?
Yeah.
Andrew. I'm Deb.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So, Andrew, we have about 15 minutes, but before we get started, would you like to do a centering exercise, just to kind of come in the moment?
I really don't have any in mind.
Okay.
If you could suggest something that we can do. I know for me what kind of helps is just box breathing, but I would like to try something else other than just breathing.
Oh, okay. Let's just, how about doing a body scan?
How does that work?
Okay. Why don't you just put your feet flat on the floor and just gently close your eyes? Are you comfortable closing your eyes?
Yep.
Okay. And just take a nice, deep cleansing breath. And just focus on your head and your eyes. And just focus on the tiny muscles around your eyes. And if there's any tension there, if you feel any tension, just let it go. And focus on your jaw. Any tension there, let it go. Move down to your neck, the back of your neck. Often we hold a lot of tension there. Just note if you're holding any tension there and just let it go. Just continue to take deep breaths as you move down your arms, your shoulders, your elbows, your fingertips. And then move to your heart space. Note any tension there and just let it go. Move down to your abdomen, your hips, your knees. Note any tension in any of those areas and just let it go. Move down to your ankles and your toes. And then just take one deep breath from the tips of your toes all the way to the top of your head. Note any remaining tension anywhere in your body, and then in the out-breath, just let it go. And then try that one more time. Nice deep breath from the toes all the way to the top of your head. Any remaining tension, just let it out through the tips of your toes or the tips of your fingertips. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes.
Thank you.
So Andrew, what would you like to focus on today?
I guess I was trying to think about it earlier, but what I want to focus on is what I should do in this upcoming summer. There's kind of like a life-changing event and a new chapter for my family that is kind of it is really overwhelming me, and it put quite a bit of stress on myself because it not only affects me, but it affects everyone else in my family. And more importantly, I have two little sisters that, being the older brother or big brother, I always want them to be happy.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you've got a big decision that's kind of weighing on you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to tell me more about it? And you can share just whatever you want.
I can put myself together here. So, my parents are possibly planning on a divorce. And I don't want my sisters to have to go through that. and I feel like there's something I can do to prevent that from happening. But I just don't know what to do.
So, where would you like to be at the end of our session?
Hopefully having an answer. I'm sorry.
Have you been able to shed tears over this?
No, I've just kept it to myself.
Well, you're very brave to bring it up today.
Thank you.
Can I offer you a Kleenex?
Yes, please.
Do we have one, Jane?
Yes. I wanted to wait for you to ask before I moved to get it.
Hey, I've got one.
You got one?
We've got one.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.